Chosen one, what if the woman you've been thinking about is not who you believe she is? What if everything you felt was real, is only one layer of a deeper truth heaven has been trying to show you? Archangel Michael says there is someone in your life whose presence has been shaping your emotions more than you realize. On the surface, everything feels normal, even meaningful. But spiritually, something has never fully felt at peace. Today's message is not about fear, it is about clarity. Because Michael says there is a hidden pattern you have been missing, and once you see it clearly, you will never be able to unsee it again. Stay with this message till the end, because the final revelation will explain why your spirit has been disturbed around this connection, even when nothing obvious was wrong. Chosen one, let's go deeper. Michael says not every connection that feels strong is meant to stay aligned with your future. Some people enter your life not to destroy you, but to reveal what you are still unable to see clearly. And this woman, she is connected to a lesson your spirit has been trying to process for a long time. You may not have noticed it at first. Everything probably started normally. Conversations felt smooth, energy felt familiar, and your heart slowly started attaching meaning to small moments. But something changed over time. Michael says, pay attention to what changed your peace, not what impressed your emotions. Because here is the truth most people miss. Confusion does not appear in your life without reason. There was a point where you started overthinking things that used to feel simple. You started analyzing words more than usual. You started replaying conversations in your mind, trying to understand tone, meaning, silence, everything. And you told yourself it was just overthinking. But Michael says it was not overthinking. It was your spirit noticing inconsistency before your mind was ready to accept it. Chosen one, your intuition does not speak loudly. It shows up as discomfort, as silence after certain interactions, as a strange heaviness you cannot explain to anyone. And with this woman, that feeling did not disappear, came and went. That is why you stayed confused, because part of your experience felt warm, and another part felt uncertain. And whenever those two energies exist together, the mind creates excuses, but the spirit stays alert. Michael says, when peace becomes inconsistent, it is no longer peace. Now listen carefully. There were moments where you may have felt emotionally elevated around her presence. A sense of connection, a sense of understanding, maybe even comfort. But afterwards, there were also moments of silence inside you, a subtle emptiness, a questioning feeling you could not fully explain. And you ignored it, because humans naturally trust what feels good in the moment more than what feels unclear in the long term. But heaven does not guide through intensity. Heaven guides through clarity. Chosen one, Michael is revealing something important here. Not every person who brings emotion into your life is aligned with your destiny. Some people awaken feelings, but not peace. And anything that consistently brings emotional intensity without stable inner peace eventually becomes confusion disguised as connection. That is the first sign you have been missing. Now let's go deeper. Michael says there is a reason you have not been able to fully detach your thoughts from this situation. It is because your spirit is trying to resolve something your emotions keep delaying. And that unresolved energy creates mental loops, where your mind keeps searching for answers in the same place where clarity was never given. You keep trying to understand her. But Michael says the real question is not about understanding her. It is about understanding what this connection is doing to your inner state. Because chosen one, anything that repeatedly disturbs your peace is already communicating something to you. Even if no words are spoken, even if no actions look obvious, even if everything appears normal on the surface. Heaven is not loud, but it is consistent, and confusion is not part of divine consistency. Michael says the next part of this message will reveal a deeper pattern, one that explains why your energy feels drained after certain interactions, even when nothing bad happens on the surface. And once you see that pattern clearly, you will understand why heaven never asked you to ignore your intuition in the first place. Chosen one, Archangel Michael says something you need to understand very clearly today. You were not confused because nothing was happening. You were confused because everything was happening in a way your mind could not fully decode. And that is the most dangerous type of confusion, because it doesn't come from chaos, it comes from subtle imbalance. Chosen one, think back carefully. With this woman, there were never always obvious problems. No big fights, no dramatic betrayals, no clear reason to step back. And that is exactly why you stayed longer than you should have. Because the human mind trusts what looks peaceful on the surface, but the spirit reacts to what is felt underneath. And underneath, something was never fully stable. Michael says, the first sign of misalignment is not conflict. It is inner discomfort that has no explanation. There were moments where everything looked normal, but your energy did not feel normal. You would talk to her, and later feel slightly drained. You would think about the connection, and your mind would start overworking. You would replay conversations, searching for meanings that were never clearly given. And slowly, your peace started becoming inconsistent. Chosen one, this is where most people miss the truth. They think if nothing bad is happening, then everything is fine. But spiritual truth does not depend on visible events. It depends on internal state. And your internal state was changing without your permission. First, you ignored it. Then you justified it. Then you normalized it. And finally, you started doubting yourself instead of the situation. Michael says, when a connection is unclear, the mind always blames itself first before it questions the pattern. That is exactly what happened to you. Now listen carefully. There was a cycle forming in your experience. A cycle you didn't fully recognize at that time. You would feel connection, then confusion, then emotional questioning, then temporary clarity, then emotional pull again. And this cycle repeated silently. No drama, no explosion, just emotional repetition. And chosen one, repetition is how emotional dependency is created. Not through intensity, but through familiarity. Because your brain starts expecting the cycle, even when your spirit is uncomfortable with it. Michael says, anything that repeatedly disturbs your inner calm is not just an experience. It is information, but you treated that information as overthinking. So instead of listening, you started analyzing yourself. You started asking, why am I feeling this way? What is wrong with me? Why can't I be normal about this? But the truth was simple. Nothing was wrong with you. Your awareness was increasing. Chosen one, there is something deeper happening here. Not every connection changes your life externally. Some connections change your emotional baseline, meaning what you once considered normal peace slowly becomes harder to maintain. And you don't even realize when it started changing. Michael says, when your spirit is not fully at ease, your mind becomes overactive trying to compensate. That is why you started overthinking. Not because you were insecure, but because your inner system was trying to resolve something unresolved. And here is the key point. There were moments when your intuition tried to create distance, but your emotions kept pulling you back in. And this created internal conflict. One part of you felt connection. Another part of you felt uncertainty. And in between those two, confusion grew. Chosen one, Michael reveals something important here. Confusion does not mean you lack clarity. It often means you are standing between truth and attachment. And attachment always fights longer than truth, because attachment feels familiar. Truth feels uncomfortable at first. That is why you kept questioning your own intuition. That is why you kept giving benefit of doubt. That is why you kept hoping things would become clearer with time. But clarity does not come from time alone. It comes from awareness. Now listen carefully. Your spirit was not reacting to one moment. It was reacting to a pattern. And patterns always tell the real story, because moments can be misleading, but patterns cannot hide forever. And your pattern was simple. Temporary peace, confusion, emotional doubt, overthinking, reset, temporary peace again. Michael says, a repeating emotional loop is never random. It is a sign that something is not aligned with your peace. Chosen one, you were not losing control. You were gaining perception. And perception always feels uncomfortable before it feels clear. because it removes emotional illusion slowly. Michael says something important, BEF. Where we move to part 3, there is a reason this connection keeps staying in your thoughts even when logic says you should move on. It is because your emotions are still attached to what your spirit has already started questioning. And until that disconnect is resolved, your mind will keep looping, your heart will keep remembering, and your spirit will keep signaling. And in the next part, Michael will reveal something even deeper: why certain people become uncomfortable when your energy begins to shift, and how that reaction exposes their true role in your journey. And once you understand that, you will never look at this connection the same way again. Chosen One, Archangel Michael says something is happening around you that you are slowly starting to feel, but you still cannot fully explain it. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, but it is real. And most importantly, it is irreversible. Because when your energy begins to shift, life does not ask permission from anyone around you. It simply changes. Chosen One, there was a version of you that used to explain everything. If someone misunderstood you, you clarified. If someone pulled away, you adjusted. If someone acted distant, you tried harder. You were constantly maintaining emotional balance in situations that were not balanced in return. And you did not even realize how much energy that was costing you. But now something inside you is different. You are not reacting the same way anymore. And that is what is creating silence in certain connections. Michael says, when a person stops overfunctioning in emotional dynamics, the entire system around them begins to feel the absence. And that is exactly what is happening right now. You are no longer over-explaining. You are no longer over-giving. You are no longer emotionally overextending yourself just to keep things stable. And because of that, the dynamic has started shifting on its own. Chosen One, there is something very subtle happening here. People don't always notice when your energy changes, but they always feel it, even if they cannot explain it. Even if they pretend everything is normal, something feels different, less accessible, less predictable, less emotionally available than before. And this is where confusion starts to appear in other people. Not in you, in them, because they were used to a certain version of your energy, a version that was always available, always understanding, always adjusting. But now, that version is disappearing slowly. Michael says, when you stop feeding emotional imbalance, those who were comfortable in that imbalance will feel discomfort first. And this is not punishment. This is alignment, because energy always corrects itself when it stops being overused in the wrong direction. Chosen One, now listen carefully. There were moments where you may have noticed something strange. Certain conversations don't feel as effortless anymore. Certain people don't communicate the same way. Certain emotional exchanges feel slightly off. Not broken, but different. And your mind tries to explain it logically. But your spirit already knows. Something has shifted. Michael says, energy does not lie. It only changes when truth enters the system. And truth in your case is this: you are no longer the same emotional version of yourself that people were previously interacting with. Chosen One, this is where your awareness is rising. You are beginning to see patterns instead of moments. Because moments can fool you, but patterns cannot hide forever. And when you look at patterns, you start noticing repetition, emotional cycles, behavior loops, energy inconsistencies, and slowly, you stop blaming yourself for everything. That is the real shift, not external change, but internal clarity. Michael says, awareness is the moment when confusion stops feeling personal and starts feeling informative. And that is exactly what is happening inside you right now. Chosen One, there is another layer here that you must understand. When your energy begins to stabilize, people who were connected to your emotional instability start reacting differently. Not because you did anything wrong, but because the access they were used to is no longer available in the same way. And that creates confusion in them. Not clarity, confusion. And this is where silence becomes powerful. Because silence is no longer emotional confusion for you. It becomes protection. It becomes awareness. It becomes space for clarity to form. Michael says, the moment you stop reacting emotionally, you begin to see people's true emotional intentions. And that is the real shift you are entering now. Chosen one, this is also why certain connections feel heavier now. Not because they became worse, but because you are no longer ignoring what you used to ignore before. You are noticing more, feeling more, understanding more, and filtering less. That is why emotional clarity feels uncomfortable at first, because it removes illusion slowly, not instantly. Michael says, truth does not enter loudly. It replaces illusion quietly. And that is exactly what is happening in your life. Chosen one, and now you are standing at a very important point, where emotional attachment is slowly being replaced by observation, where confusion is slowly being replaced by clarity, where overthinking is slowly being said by awareness. And in the next part, Michael will reveal something even deeper, why certain people become uncomfortable when your energy stabilizes, and how that reaction reveals their real emotional position in your life. Because once you see that, you will finally understand what was real and what was only emotional dependency. Chosen one, Archangel Michael says you are now entering a phase where confusion is no longer growing. Instead, something else is happening. Clarity is slowly entering your system, not all at once, but piece by piece. And that is why certain things around you no longer feel the same way they used to. Not because they changed suddenly, but because you changed internally. Chosen one, there was a time when you used to emotionally react first and think later, but now something has shifted. Now you observe first and react less. And this small change is powerful, because emotional reactions keep you inside confusion, but observation takes you toward truth. Michael says, when a person stops reacting emotionally, truth begins to reveal itself without force. And that is exactly what is happening in your life right now. Chosen one, now listen carefully. There were moments in this connection where your intuition tried to speak very clearly, but your emotions were louder, so you ignored it. Not once, not twice, multiple times. And each time you ignored it, the signal didn't disappear. It just became quieter, but stronger in meaning. Because chosen one, your spirit never shouts without reason. It repeats, it nudges, it disturbs your peace slightly, not to confuse you, but to guide you. And Michael says something very important here. The spirit never argues with emotion. It simply waits until emotion becomes tired of ignoring truth. And that is the phase you are entering now. Chosen one, you may notice something very subtle. Certain thoughts about this connection are not as emotional as before. Earlier, there was attachment in those thoughts. Now there is analysis. Earlier, there was hope. Now there is observation. And this shift is not accidental. It is alignment happening inside you. Because now you are starting to ask different questions. Not, what do I feel about this? But, what is this pattern showing me? And this is the beginning of spiritual maturity. Michael says, when emotion stops leading, awareness starts guiding. And awareness always changes how you interpret people. Not by judging them, but by seeing them more clearly. Chosen one, there is something deeper you are now beginning to experience. Certain memories do not feel as strong as they used to. Certain emotional moments are losing their intensity. And certain attachments are naturally loosening their grip. Not because you are forcing it, but because your energy is no longer feeding it the same way. And this is where truth starts to surface slowly. Because when emotional energy decreases, patterns become visible. And when patterns become visible, denial becomes harder to maintain. Michael says, clarity does not destroy connection. It destroys illusion. And illusion is what was keeping confusion alive. Chosen one, now listen closely. There is a reason why certain people become uncomfortable when your energy stabilizes. It is not because you are doing something against them. It is because you are no longer emotionally accessible in the same way. And emotional access is what many dynamics silently depend on. So when your reactions reduce, when your explanations stop, When your emotional availability changes, the system around you feels the shift, even if nobody says it directly. And Michael says, when your emotional dependency ends, others are forced to reveal their emotional intent. And that is where truth becomes unavoidable. Chosen one, you may have already seen small signs: less engagement, different tone, unexpected distance, or emotional inconsistency that feels more visible now than before. And your mind tries to process it logically, but your spirit is simply observing it. Because now you are no longer inside the emotion, you are outside it. And from outside, everything looks different. Michael says, perspective changes everything that emotion once protected. And that is exactly your transformation right now. Chosen one, there is another important realization forming inside you. You are no longer afraid of silence. Earlier, silence used to feel like confusion. Now silence feels like space. Space to think, space to observe, space to understand. And this is a major shift in your emotional structure. Because silence is where truth becomes visible. Not noise. Noise hides truth. Silence reveals it. Michael says, the truth you seek does not arrive through answers. It arrives through awareness of patterns you can no longer ignore. And you are now at that stage. Chosen one. And slowly, you are starting to understand something very important. Not everything you felt was wrong, but not everything you felt was complete either. Some feelings were real, but incomplete in understanding. And that is why confusion existed, because emotion was real, but clarity was missing. Now both are starting to separate. And when they separate, you begin to see what was emotional and what was truth. Chosen one, in the next and final part, Michael will reveal something very important: why this connection could never stay the same when your energy started changing, and what this final shift means for your emotional and spiritual future. Because once you understand that, you will never look at this situation the same way again. Chosen one, Archangel Michael says you have now reached the final stage of this message. And at this point, confusion is no longer your biggest problem. Clarity is, because once clarity begins to enter your system, you can never go back to seeing things the same way again. Chosen one, everything you experienced in this connection, the confusion, the emotional pull, the overthinking, the silence, the attachment, none of it was random, but not all of it was meant to last forever either. Michael says, some connections are not meant to stay. They are meant to awaken awareness inside you. And this is what is happening right now. You are not losing something. You are understanding something. Chosen one, there was a version of you that used to chase emotional clarity from people. You used to look for answers in them. You used to depend on their behavior to understand your feelings. But now something has changed. Now you are starting to look within instead of looking outward. And this shift is powerful. Because when you stop depending on external validation, you start seeing truth more clearly. Michael says, when you stop seeking answers from people, truth starts speaking through your awareness. And that is exactly your transformation. Chosen one, now listen carefully. This woman is not who your emotions made her appear to be, and she is also not who your fears tried to label her as. She is simply a part of a lesson your spirit needed to experience. Nothing more, and nothing less. And the real truth is this: it was never about her alone. It was about what she activated inside you. Awareness, discernment, boundaries, emotional intelligence, and spiritual clarity. Chosen one, you are now entering a stage where you will no longer ignore patterns just to protect emotions. You will no longer stay confused just to preserve attachment. You will no longer sacrifice peace for temporary emotional comfort. Michael says, the chosen one does not lose people. The chosen one loses illusions. And that is what is ending here. Chosen one, what comes next in your life will feel different. Not because everything becomes perfect, but because you become clear. And clarity changes everything. It changes how you see people. It changes how you feel energy. It changes how you choose connections. And slowly, your spirit stops tolerating confusion. because peace becomes your standard, not emotion. Michael says, when peace becomes your priority, confusion loses access to your life. And that is your final shift. Chosen one, this message is not ending with fear. It is ending with awareness, because awareness is your real protection. Not overthinking, not attachment, not emotional guessing. Awareness. And now Michael leaves you with this final truth. You were never meant to stay stuck in confusion. You were meant to grow through it and rise beyond it. If this message resonated with you, don't ignore it. Like this video, share it with someone who needs clarity in their life right now. And comment below, I choose clarity over confusion. And don't forget to subscribe, because more messages like this are coming for those who are ready to wake up. Chosen one, your awakening has already begun.